Welcome to Real Women's Stories. I'm Lisa Quait and I am a life coach. I am a big social person. I love to get together. I love having a few drinks with my friends, and I really enjoy a Friday night drink with my husband as well. I'm really interested in the non-alcoholic industry because I keep seeing it in the supermarkets all the time. And I've got a couple of friends who've stopped drinking. They've been bringing over the non-secco, where I've been drinking my Prosecco. And I'm just really interested in this whole industry and how it's evolving with society and the pressures that are upon us of drinking, but yet loads of people are trying not to drink at the moment.
5 years ago, no one really cared. Now there's alcohol-free alternatives in every pub, club and restaurant.
And I thought it would be really important to explore the reasons why people are drinking less.
And on average, they lost about 3 kilograms in weight, reduced their dangerous liver fat by about 40%, reduced their risk of type 2 diabetes, reduced their risk of various types of cancer.
This is Real Women's Stories. I have questioned quite considerably over the last few years as to whether or not alcohol has a good effect on me or a bad effect on me. And I have a lot of friends who have made the choice not to drink alcohol. And I really wanted to understand more about the practices involved and the help that was out there for people that have decided not to drink alcohol. And so today I will be interviewing Andy Ramage. Andy was a founder of an initiative called 1 Year No Beer, where he decided not to drink for 1 year. He is now 10 years into his journey, and I really want to pick his brains as to how he's navigated that journey, the challenges he's faced, and how it affects us as women. Andy, lovely to see you on this fine morning. And I actually know you through my husband. We met when he was working up in the city way before COVID. And we were introduced because you were running a initiative called Seneca, which I think you're still involved in. And you were doing fitness training and helping execs in the city really clean up their act, to really clean up their health, drinking wise, food wise, nutrition and fitness. I heard you on Matt Willis's podcast, and you know, a lot of the things you were saying totally connected with me about not drinking alcohol, about how it affects us, not as in that I've got a problem with it, but I've been going out and really drinking and binge drinking at the weekend. So first of all, I'd love you to tell me, Seneca, where did you get the name from? Because I've always been interested. Just tell me about your journey so far with your 1 year no beer as well.
The Seneca is a Stoic philosopher from about 2,000 years ago that I love. He was brilliant, who writes so wonderfully now. If you read his work from 2,000 years ago, his letters predominantly, which I love, you can get them on Penguin Classics for anyone that's interested. But they speak to you today in a way that is just mind-blowing, considering they were written 2,000 years ago. But what it just reminds me that we've come so far materially and our worlds have changed so much, yet internally, i.e. our mental world, we've gone backwards, I would argue, from these days. So yeah, I've just been drawn to Seneca for a long while. So that was the inspiration behind the name initially for that bit of the business, which is really all about helping, you know, elite performers. I work with tons and tons of athletes right now, brilliant professional athletes, as well as elite city performers. And it's all about optimizing health and well-being and performance. Essentially, that's the Seneca piece, which I love. And then the 1 Year No Beer piece, that really came out of, you know, if I wind the clock back, I was a professional footballer. So I left school at 16 to go and pursue that dream. Was injured, unfortunately, when I was about 19. Travelled the world and ended up in the world of broking, which was a bit of an adventure, and fell into that broker lifestyle, which you know very well. And fast forward 10 years, mid-30s, achieved, I guess, you know, a modicum of success by one yardstick, which was monetary income. But I was 3 stone, 42 pounds heavier than I am now. I hadn't exercised for the best part of 15 years, drinking too much, stressed all the time, maxed out all the time. Life had just plateaued a little bit, in truth. I think I was a bit bored, thinking that if I made enough money, I'd be blissfully happy. Now, that's not going very well for most people as far as I can see it. So it's a real epiphany wake-up moment of, I'm just not doing this anymore. I'm not going to allow my path to be very similar to many of my peers at the time, which was broken body, broken mind, broken home. It was just a moment of, I'm just not doing it. So I'm going to do something different. So I left my firm, traveled the world, trained with some of the best people in nutrition and movement and mindfulness, came back to the city to set up Alpha Energy and where you were and where we first met each other, to do things a little bit differently. And so I was really trying to pioneer that, drop the dress code, got us into, our sports gear, built a gym in the office, which you've been in to use. There was even a period where I used to put alarm on every hour on the hour, and the lads would get up and stretch and move just to bring the energy back in the room. That morphed into songs being played. And the best song was the YMCA, was the number one song that people would choose. Very strangely, Johnny Barrett, as well, throw some incredible shapes. Who was a former rugby player, played for Wasp. And part of that momentum was to take a break from alcohol, because I thought maybe that's the thing that's getting in the way, and it was for me. And what happened next was transformative, and that led to creating One Beer and the Dry app that I'm involved with now.
Listen, I know you're not a woman, and this podcast is called Real Women's Stories. So, I think us women are really struggling with having to contemplate the idea of, should I stop drinking? Why should I stop drinking? I think when I speak to women from 30s to 40s, their hangovers tend to get worse. I chat to the girls in the office and they're like, do you know what? I can't drink the way I used to. And then I notice from 40s to 50s, as women start going through their perimenopause or into menopause, it is like you cannot get out of bed. If you have a glass of red wine, it literally sends you sideways. And it really plays havoc with your hormones, your weight gain. And when I heard that interview that you did, I listened for me, and in coaching, and I know that you are a coach as well, we listen for things, we listen for the gold for ourselves. We always say to people, you listen for you. And I really did that day. And it just drove me to wanting me to just chat to you and really understand the concept behind, can we give up alcohol? How easy is it as women?
Funny enough, I'm going to say the alcohol-free space that's grown up over the last 10 years is predominantly female, especially online, which has been really good to see, because I think historically, and this is not where what I do is aim. So everything I do is about the average drinker, the middle lane drinker, someone that drinks heavily, sometimes averagely, sometimes moderately, sometimes not at all, which is about 70% of the adult population, of the Western world. So it's a huge group. So that is who all of my, talks and everything I do is aimed at that group. Historically, there was only one real group movement around changing people's relationship with alcohol, which was much more recovery-based, dependency-based, 12-step programs. And the AA, for example, that's not what I do. We're much further upstream and trying to prevent people having to reach that space. But that space is predominantly male. So what's been really nice in the upstream part, i.e. the inspirational part, is predominantly female, which is really cool. So I see it all the time. And I think what has changed in women's relationship with alcohol, I think it was early 90s to mid 90s, women on the whole were drinking as much as men. So historically, men would have drunk more than women. And there's lots of cultural reasons for that and whatnot. But actually women were on a par and even started to supersede men in terms of their consumption, which again, we're generalizing massively, but it has been wine culture. Wine wasn't really a thing if you go back 20, 25 years where people would actually purchase wine and drink at home. It just wasn't like the darn thing. So it just didn't happen as much. Whereas now we've really created this whole, especially for women, this unbelievable, almost blanket approach to alcohol where it seems to be appearing all the time, and there's all the memes and there's all the, mummies who drink wine kind of culture that seems to have sprung up, which has created this, again, a new kind of social pressure, I think, for women that's everywhere. It seems to be everywhere in their life, in the way that I think it is for most adults, in truth. And it's really interesting to start to see that. And someone said this to me recently, that Bridget Jones was a real, the Bridget Jones Diary, that the film especially, was a real movement in terms of alcohol consumption for women. At that point in time, our cultural references, some of those people that we really, idolized and admired on this big screen and whatnot, were really starting to portray this completely different relationship with alcohol. And I think that's led to, again, this sort of cultural place where we're in at the moment, where it's just everywhere, isn't it? You can't escape it. A celebration, a commiseration, a day that ends in Y, a stressful day, a good day. It's everywhere, the same as it is for most adults. But I really think that wine culture in particular, and of course men drink wine as well, but we are, I'm just generalizing here, has really seeped into the sort of the culture of being female in many ways. And I think that's probably put a lot more pressure on women to continue to drink, because most of their friends do, for example. That's how they get together and socialize and connect. And what I'm always trying to do is just to try and get people to look at it a bit differently and think, actually, is that serving me in the way that maybe it once did? Is it beneficial to sit there in front of the TV on a Tuesday night having a glass of wine or a bowl of beer or whatever? Is it actually achieving what I think it is achieving, which is helping me relax? And very often it's not. It's having the opposite effect, and we can get to the sides of that. And am I having a good time? Am I genuinely having a really good time whilst I'm drinking? And what about those knock-on consequences? Is that trade worth it? Is that one glass of wine or bottle worth it? I think they're the reflections to start to have.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I didn't drink last night, and I'm up at 8 o'clock in the morning doing a podcast. So had I had, my usual bottle of wine, I probably would have felt pretty crap. I couldn't have really been communicating as well as I am. And, I probably wouldn't want to work out straight after this interview and obviously get in my gym, which I agree with you. There are times where I have gone out and had some drinks and gone, no, it's fine, I'm going to get in the gym in the morning. And then I wake up and think, and not even that hungover, but I just can't be bothered. It just doesn't it? It takes that little spark away. Everything just seems a lot worse after you've had a few drinks.
Yeah, I mean, that's so that was me. I was in that position. So if I wind back, I'm 10 years on this alcohol-free adventure. I was that person waking up on a Saturday after a big, heavy week as a broker, once or twice out in the week, a few on a Friday to get over the fact that I was wrecked. And then I'd wake up on a Saturday and I just couldn't be bothered. Just couldn't be asked. I'd literally be hiding under the covers thinking, the kids are going to come in a minute and wake me up. I mean, that's not right, is it? On any level, that's not right. I want to be the dad that had the energy to welcome the kids and be excited because they're getting up, not thinking, oh, come on, I've got to get through this. I've got to take him here, I've got to take him there. How many adults are caught in that trap right now and actually have not realized that what's causing that trap is the very thing that they think is bringing a bit of joy or a bit of fun? And it genuinely is a reflection for everyone, and why I'm so keen for people just to take a break, just to have a look at it, because something else you touched on there is so important. Our new normal for so many adults, and it's certainly the case for me, becomes way below what our optimal best is. For example, I think I was, for the best part of 15 years, operating at about 50% of what I was capable of. And I mean 50% in terms of energy, 50% in terms of my vitality, the type of parent that I wanted to be, the type, husband that I wanted to be, the type of broker that I wanted to be. 50% underperforming, but that felt like my new normal. Life was just a slog. It's always a slog. Couldn't be asked. Just get through it, have a couple of drinks, felt a bit better, rinse, repeat. All the weight going on, never exercising. Life felt great and dull, is the truth. Yet, on the face of it, it looked super successful and nice things were happening, don't get me wrong. But that's just not enough. It certainly wasn't for me. And it wasn't until I found the courage, because it took a lot of courage for someone like myself, because, I built a persona around being that guy, that entertained with alcohol and whatnot. It took a lot of courage to remove it. But in doing so, it was just transformative. And I think that's the case for so many people because you don't know what you don't know. So quite quickly I worked out, oh, I'm sleeping better than I've ever slept before. Like a baby. I'm waking up before the alarm clock. I'm looking forward to the kids getting up. I'm in the gym. I'm starting to eat better. That weight, 3 stone, 42 pounds just fell off me. My resting heart rate went from 68 back down to athlete 42, body fat 35% down to 10%. Eventually, I had more time, more energy. I was a much better husband. I was more present with the kids all the time. I was knocking it out the park in the workplace because I was always on the ball. And I was like, this is like a superpower. It's like a superpower. And I really believe for most people that are middle lane drinkers, they don't realize the impact that's been having over all these years until they remove it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting you say middle lane drinkers, because that was the thing that got me listening during your interview. It was like, I am a middle lane drinker. I go out. I mean, there are times where I don't drink because I'm heavily into my sports. And if I've got a goal in mind, that's great. But when I don't have a photo shoot or bodybuilding competition to do, what happens now? I then become that middle lane drinker because I enjoy it, and it's about socializing and it's about being around people because I've been quite strict. One thing I really want to ask you is, how did your wife cope when you were drinking? And also, how does she cope now you're not drinking?
Yeah. And so we would have met through alcohol in many ways. Our relationship, we met in Ireland. I was living in Ireland at the time. So a lot of Irish girls drink pints, which I'd never seen before. I was like, this is incredible. Look at these girls, they're drinking pints. And Tara was one of those who would drink pints. I remember when I first brought her to the UK and we went out to the pub with Dad and my brothers, and he sort of, what do you want to drink? I did the round. And I went, oh, yeah, I'll have a pint or whatever it was, Stella or whatever. And Tara was like, yeah, I'll have a pint. And he sort of did this big double take as if to say, what do you mean? You can have a pint. So let's just say that we were, that's how our relationship was built. All our mates were built in that type of arena. So fast forward, we're now married at that stage, about 8-9 years. Obviously, I decided to go on this adventure, right? So Tara's still drinking. I'm not. I didn't really know that was going to play out, but Tara's been brilliant, right? She's my biggest supporter, always will be, always has been, and vice versa. She knew the negative consequences that it was causing me. It was causing me that tiredness the next day, that lethargy. I just started to experience panic attacks as well, and anxiety, which is debilitating if anyone's experienced that. And it was purely brought on by alcohol the day after. And then, of course, the way out of that is to have another drink. So all of a sudden, you can see where that could lead. Again, I never fell down that path. It still stayed in that, that middle lane. And it was, a couple of times in the week. It was very job related, in truth. The weekends would come and I wouldn't particularly want to drink. So when I first removed it, there was a load of fear on my side, especially. I was worried, would Tara think I was boring, for example? And, run off with the really exciting postman. Do you know what I mean? I had those real fears. My biggest fear, and I always joke about it, which is true. How the hell was I going to bloody dance at weddings? That was probably my number one fear when I stopped drinking. But it worked out really well between us. Tara totally supported me, and we had to adjust our relationship, right? And it took a little while to sort of figure that out, but we totally got there. And Tara still drinks to this day. So, last night we went out, we had a lovely meal, my mum, dad, and my brothers. Tara has a good few drinks, Dale had a good few drinks, and I just drive them home. Do you know what I mean? I've trained myself to realize that this was my choice. And I think that's the thing about this alcohol-free adventure. It is it's a personal choice. And I think you also have to embrace the fact that there's other people involved in that choice. So if you decide to change your relationship with alcohol, like I did, it is going to have an impact on other people. So it is that empathy for their position as well, if you know what I mean. And also not feeling like because you've changed your behavior, everyone else has to change theirs. Do you know what I mean? But I remember one occasion, we were about a year and a half in. And so I was about a year and a half alcohol free. And what had happened about 6 months in, I'd inspired another broker called Riri, he to do a year. So he did his year and he got to the end of his year, and we'd started at that stage the 1 Year No Beer movement. So we're heavily involved in that. He decides at the end of his year, he's going to have a drink again. it totally threw a spanner in the works. I was 18 months in, and I remember pacing up and down the kitchen, not far from here. It felt like about 4 hours, thinking to myself, well, if Rue can have a drink, I can have a drink. You know, I didn't have a problem. I was a middle-aged drinker. I just decided to do this for like optimal performance and health reasons. Maybe I'll have a drink. And I literally, you know, had one of those horrible moments where I just got caught in my head, up and down the kitchen, up and down the kitchen. In my mind, Tara wasn't there, thinking when Tara comes back, I'm going to tell her, tells my wife, that what I've been thinking. And in my mind, I thought she's going to say, brilliant. You know, I'll get my drinking buddy back. Don't tell anyone. Let's have a couple of drinks. And she walks in the front door and I'm like, Tara, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. And she just stopped, looked at me and went, why would you do that? Why would you go back there? All that tiredness can't be asked. Look how far you've come. Look at all the weight you've lost. Look how great you look. Look how much better you feel. You're a better dad. You're better at your job. Why would you do that? And it was a really brilliant moment for me because it sort of snapped me out of that state that I was in. And that was it. I've never ever considered it. That was the one moment I considered it, you know, in 10 and a bit years now, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I feel lucky that I've had her support, but also I support her. If she wants to have a drink, brilliant, crack on. I don't moan about it. I'm not like, oh, you can't have a drink. But equally, if she wants to have a drink with her friends, she's going to change. Right?
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
change when we drink alcohol. So I see the change, and it's like, you can crack on now. If you're
Yeah.
and go mad, you go for it. I'm checking out. I'll see you later on. You know, so we've got that in our relationship. She'll get a cab home or get a lift back with someone else. There comes a point where
Yeah.
I'll wave a goodbye.
Can we flip it? Because I'm sure you're dealing with women who have stopped drinking.
Yeah.
How does it affect their relationships? Because a lot of women may be listening to this, considering what you're, you know, going on this journey, but they're also, I know men and women are different. Is the situation the same? What kind of responses have women come to you? Have they had the same issues, or they not had issues? How do their partners support them? Because I think men will view it differently from a woman.
Yeah, and I think individuals view it differently. We've all got our own maps of the world, haven't we? And especially with alcohol, because it is one of these really funny things. So someone can have a couple of drinks and it doesn't really affect them and they don't really care and they can take it or leave it. And then they're really confused about the person that wants to take a break. So they're a bit like why would you? So it's a diverse mix. In terms of many of the women, and again, as mentioned, it's predominantly female in the space that I work in. It is a real mixture, I must admit. Some of them, and I'll be completely honest, realised that they were drinking to cover up an unhappy marriage or relationship, is the truth of it. And actually they turned to that glass of wine or two most evenings to try and blot it out, get through it. I think I've seen, you know, many women that would come out the other side of that with that clarity, that confidence and that courage that comes back to make really proactive stances in their relationships, in their personal relationships. Equally, I've seen many inspire their partners or their other halves by taking a break, and they feel like they're better parents, they're better mums, they've got more energy, they've got more time, they just feel great. You know, that anxiety that was hanging around has dissipated and disappeared. And then you've got those fractious ones as well, in the sense that one of the partners just doesn't get it, doesn't get why they don't want to drink, and might put them under that sort of early bit of social pressure to continue to drink. So it is a real mixture. I think what it is, when someone's a bit resistant to you taking a break, it usually is a reflection on them, not on you. And what I mean by that is they're probably a bit concerned about their own relationship with alcohol, or they're considering that you might change by taking a break from alcohol. So there's fear all over the place. So I think some partners are resistant to change. So they don't want you to change. If you change and get all fit and healthy and incredible and you're loving life and they're still, you know, drinking and a bit, you know, lethargic, are you gonna run away with someone? You know, there's that typical kind of relationship fear. Or it holds a mirror up to their relationship with alcohol, which they don't like, because maybe they sort of know they could probably do with taking a break. But equally then, what I tend to find is if it's a good relationship, it's inspirational. You know, it only benefits the people that are around you because you feel better. You're more energized and optimized and showing up as a better version of you. That's a gift, isn't it? I think the greatest gift you can ever give your relationships is you being the best version of you that you can be. And if that means taking a break from alcohol, what a gift that is for your loved ones. And what I also see is, whilst there might be some resistance in the early days, very often over time, when people see the incredible benefits, they can't argue with that. They often become your biggest supporters. So I often see everything within a relationship, but very often the end result, even if it starts a little bit fractious, is one of real like respect and encouragement, which is pretty cool.
And I know you've got the Dry app. What kind of support do people get? So if they come to you and say, listen, Andy, I've heard, like me, your podcast, I want to stop drinking. I've got all these fears. What support do you give people to kind of get through the process?
Yeah, so in the Dry app, and it's spelt DRYY, there's 2 Y's, it's a free app. It's unbelievable. So every single morning at 7:30, myself or Matt Ping, Crystal Day, who helps run the app, or our brilliant life members, they're live every single morning in that app. So you get live updates, content, just inspirational space to really work out that you're not the only one. And actually, there's loads of us. There is like literally tens of thousands within the app come together on a daily basis just to cheer each other on. Because I think it is a solo mission at times. You do need that extra bit of inspiration. You do need to realize that actually most people are in the same boat, in that mid lane, excited to take a break. And then our focus is always on the wins, always on the positives. What do you gain? It's not about giving anything out. What are you gaining? Are you a slightly better parent? And many men and women, we want to be great parents. If we've got our children, we want to be good at our jobs. We want to be, we don't want to be snappy and cranky and can't be asked. So are you become a better version of you? Have you got more time? Have you got more energy? And what about some of those, vanity wins, right? Which are really important as well. Do you look better? Are you losing some weight? And by the way, we know all this through the research. I spoke to a guy called Professor Kevin Moore just recently, who conducted the largest ever study into a 28-day break from alcohol for the average drinker. And on average, they lost about 3 kilograms in weight, reduced their dangerous liver fat by about 40%, reduced their risk of type 2 diabetes, reduced their risk of various types of cancer. But one of the big things he said that people don't realize is that just like smoking, alcohol destroys the quality of your skin. So it ages you prematurely. So one of the best things you can do for your skin and your health and your looks is to take a break from alcohol. And there's another thing, sober hair it's called. I didn't know this was a thing, but it is apparently similar type of thing. When you take a break from alcohol, your hair's more hydrated and voluptuous, as it were. So there's an incredible litany of, wins in terms of how you look and how you feel. Like if you're gaining all of those advantages, why not keep going? That's the mantra of it.
Can we just touch upon the non-alcoholic beverage kind of side of things? Is that growing now? Because I know that there are, I've heard of there are bars and pubs that are just trying to have nights where they're not serving alcohol. Is that sustainable? Are people really, do you think that will really change, or is it just a bit of a fad?
No, it's 100% changing dramatically. I've seen that over the last 10 years. 5 years ago, no one really cared. Now there's alcohol-free alternatives in every pub, club, and restaurant. I went out last night and, I asked what alcohol-free beers you've got, and they listed off 4 or 5. Which is a complete game changer. When I started this 10 years ago, there was none, or maybe one if you were lucky, and it was sort of, they had to find it on the back shelf and blow the cobwebs off it kind of drink. Whereas now they're everywhere, right? That is an absolute game changer. I think it will be a hybrid going forward rather than, there are alcohol-free bars. They don't tend to do, it's not quite there at the moment. I must admit, I've been to, literally alcohol-free bars in LA and London, and I think it's the hybrid that works better. What I mean by that is Lucky Saint, for example, is a huge brand here, which is a beer. They've done a brilliant job of getting it stocked almost everywhere, but they've got a pub in London, for example. It's the Lucky Saint pub, which is an alcohol-free drink, which serves their full range of Lucky Saint, but also serves alcohol. So it's like a flip of the traditional pub, which is all about alcohol and a little bit about alcohol-free. This is all about alcohol-free, but there's also alcohol in there. So I think that's probably the best place to be, in the sense that people can then make a choice, can't they? I'm all about choice. I'm not anti-alcohol, far from it. It's like if I go to a pub, I'm going to choose alcohol-free. So I appreciate the fact that there was alcohol-free there, But if I'm with Tara, she's going to have a glass of wine, right?
Yeah.
And that's her choice, it's not mine. So I think that's where it's going. But what we do know is over the last few years, the alcohol-free drinks industry's grown by about 500%. One of my really good friends owns Athletic Brewing, Bill Schufelt. He was a trader, hedge fund guy, set that business up 5 years ago. It's now worth $1 billion. $1 billion business, 5 years, alcohol-free drink. So I think that speaks to how big the space has grown, which is really exciting for me. And I know, I've been very, very grateful to have been a part of that movement from pretty much the inception.
What an absolute inspirational conversation. Look, I know Andy is not a woman, but we can all listen for the gold in everything that Andy was saying. Just some of the concepts that he was talking about, especially that middle of the road drinker, because that's me. And I'm sure that the majority of people listening to this are the middle of the road drinkers. We do reach for that glass of wine on a Friday night, and then it spirals out the whole weekend. You drink Friday, you see your mates on Saturday night, either for a takeaway, you go out for dinner, or there's a party. And then Sunday, it's a Sunday lunch, or you might have hangover, and then you reach for the Bloody Marys. Well, that was always me. And you know what? It's got me thinking, maybe I need to go alcohol free, because if I can do it and I can then share my experiences with you and take the practices that Andy gave to us in this interview, it could help all of us. And this is about empowering us all. So I am going to take on the challenge, and I'm not going to drink for the next few months, and let's see how I get on. If anyone would like to chat to us, if they want to know more about Andy's app and his coaching, you can get in touch with us at TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. That's TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. This is a community. Please write in if you've got any questions, any worries or concerns. We're here to help you. In order for us to get more interviews like this in place, we need to know whether you like them or not. So if you could hit the follow buttons on your platform apps, there's listening apps. YouTube is a subscribe button, but it's totally free. And then if you do like what you're listening to, you can rate us and leave us a review and tell us what it is that you like about the episode, so we know we should do it again, something similar, or in fact, if there's other episodes or topics you'd like us to cover. And you can listen during the week for my midweek episode of Real Women's Stories, where I will be giving you some practices, giving you a little bit more insight into my story with alcohol and my relationship with alcohol, which hopefully will help you. So midweek episode, Real Women's Stories. I'll see you then.